Now to the case of an American who's literally been wasting away in a Cuban prison since 2009. Cuba has tied his future to the fate of 5 of its agents imprisoned here in the United States. I got a rare opportunity to speak exclusively with Alan Gross just a little while ago. You're going to hear the conversation in a minute. He phoned me from Cuba. But first, let's show you how he ended up behind Cuban bars. Alan Gross is living a nightmare that's lasted more than 2 years. The Maryland subcontractor went to Cuba in 2009, working for a U.S. government-funded international development group. Gross's family says his mission was to link Cuba's small Jewish community to the internet. The Cuban government thought otherwise, charging Gross with smuggling in illegal equipment and with being a threat to the security and independence of the state. Last year, after he spent months and months behind bars, a Cuban court finally convicted Gross, sentencing him to 15 years.
I respect the sovereignty of Cuba. I have learned from my parents and through experience that respect is something that one must have in order to receive.
That's Gross's wife, Judy, reading a statement her husband wrote by hand and delivered to a Havana court after his trial. She spoke to CNN's Jill Doherty last fall, shortly after a Cuban court turned down Gross's last appeal.
One of my biggest fears is I'm going to get a call from my attorney one day saying Alan had a heart attack or something happened to him. I don't know if I'll ever see him again. I don't know if he'll set foot on U.S. soil.
Several world leaders have tried to make that happen. Former President Jimmy Carter, former U.S. Ambassador in New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson, even Pope Benedict have all visited Cuba in the last year, calling on the government to release Gross. But he remains in custody, and his family says the 63-year-old's health is getting worse.
How concerned are you about his health?
Very, very concerned. He's so frail. Now he's lost over 100 pounds. I could see his bones sticking out.
Alan Gross is calling us in now from Cuba. And tell us how you're feeling.
I feel a lot lighter than I did a couple of years ago. I've lost about 100 pounds. And I exercise as much as I can. My hip is starting to give me a little bit of a problem. But otherwise, I'm not really in bad shape.
You've lost 100 pounds. What did you weigh when you were taken prisoner in Cuba, and how much do you weigh now?
I weighed in at 254, and this morning I weighed in at 158. I gained a few pounds because I received a package from home.
Now walk us through a typical day in a Cuban jail.
I'm in a secured hospital building that usually holds 3 people to a room. We're not allowed to see any other people except the cellmates. There are bars, of course, on the doors and the windows. At this juncture, I get to go outside every day while there's sunlight, and that's been a recent development because I didn't really see any sunlight for the first year and a half or so. Our food is brought to the cell. We're allowed to use a spoon with which to eat our food. The food initially wasn't very good, which is probably why I started losing weight rapidly at first. The food was infested with insects. There really wasn't much variety or quantity, mostly carbohydrates. And eventually, after the conviction and after the Supreme Court upheld the conviction, things improved as far as my physical comforts were concerned.
It's encouraging to me, Alan, but I'm wondering what you think, that they are even allowing you to make these phone calls outside to the United States, not only to me, but you speak, I assume, to your family, to your lawyers in the United States from time to time. That sounds pretty encouraging and certainly a step in the right direction.
There have been some positive developments, but it has required a lot of requests. I was told just a few months ago that I can call anybody I want once a week. But that's a more of a recent development. And the fact that they allow this call to continue, I think, is a very positive sign.
You're in a Cuban hospital, military or police hospital now. Is that because you're ill or just for security considerations?
I think mainly for security situation, and I'm not sure whose security that they have more concern about. I know when they transfer me to the large jail facility for a meeting with the consulate, the U.S. consulate, we go in about a caravan of 4 vehicles with about 15 guys. They make a big show out of the transfer, and they have these guys with flak vests and helmets and automatic weapons. But a lot of it is a show, and I'm not sure who they're putting the show on for, whether it's for their own people or it's certainly not for me.
If you could speak directly to the top leaders in Cuba, what would you say?
I would say to Raul Castro that I think he's trying to do some very courageous things. He himself has been on national television before the National Assembly, and he said that a major problem with the economy here is low productivity, and that can't be blamed on the United States. It cannot be blamed on the United States, and I think it took a lot of courage to say that.
Any prospects, any headway that you can see at all about getting you released?
None. I have a 90-year-old mother who has inoperable lung cancer, and she's not getting any younger, and she's not getting any healthier. And my lawyer and I have written on more than one occasion to the government of Cuba requesting permission for me to visit her. I would return to Cuba. You can quote me on that. I'm saying it live. I would return to Cuba if they let me visit my mother before she dies. And we've gotten no response whatsoever. My mother is not allowed to travel. She is medically ordered not to travel. And the government of Cuba knows this.
Anything you want to say to your mom, your wife, your family right now?
Well, I speak to my family every week. I try to give them encouragement. They try to give me encouragement. But what I want to say to you is that I have absolutely nothing against the people of Cuba. The people of Cuba have been wonderful. I would do anything in my power to help the people of Cuba, but I don't have any power right now. Perhaps if I was miraculously released, I could work in the United States on trying to improve the business scenario here. But I have nothing against the people of Cuba. They're wonderful. I'm not a big fan of the government right now.
I could tell.
I feel like I'm a hostage, and they, just one quick thing. The president of the Dominican Republic told me 2 years ago when he visited, he said, "Alan, I hope you realize this is not about you." And at that time, I could understand that. But right now it is about me, and it's about my family, and it's about my mother. And I'm taking this very personally. And for the Cuban government not to show the respect to respond officially to a letter that was submitted by my lawyer, who works for the same firm that represented Elian Gonzalez, I think is shameful. Shameful.
When you went to Cuba, Alan, did you know that this was a risky business?
Absolutely not. This is a place that tries to attract tourists, and my understanding was if there was any problem with the things that I was bringing here, which, by the way, anyone could buy in any Best Buy or Radio Shack or on Amazon.com, that if there was any problem at the airport, that I would just leave the equipment at the airport and take it back with me when I left.
And that was two and a half years ago.
I've never been in trouble anywhere in the world. I've worked all over the world. I've never been in any trouble. I can't even remember the last time I got a speeding ticket. And for this to happen to me at this age is incredible, just incredible.
How old are you, Alan?
I was 63 on May 2nd.
Happy birthday belatedly.
Thank you. And I recommend exercise, especially pull-ups. They're very, very good. It's a very good exercise.
Well, at least you got a little sense of humor despite everything you've gone through. Alan, let's stay in close touch. Good luck, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And we're going to post the full interview, by the way. I had a long, long conversation with Alan Gross. You'll be able to listen to it, watch it online on our website, cnn.com/Situation Room. We'll post it very, very soon.